Well, it's my privilege to introduce our speaker today again. And today we have Phil Pekelny, who is the Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of the Columbus Dispatch printing company. But today he's going to speak to us in his role as Chairman of the Board of the Columbus Zoo. You may remember earlier this year that the zoo had a levy on the ballot, and it did not pass. Phil will share with us today a little behind the scenes of what goes on as you think about having a levy and then campaigning to get the levy passed and then the subsequent aftermath when it does or doesn't. It's a pretty fascinating story. Now for some things that you may not know about Phil. He has appeared on Broadway as a conductor of the orchestra in the pit for Phantom of the Opera about a year ago. He got to sit in the pit during the show, meet the Phantom in his locker room during intermission. Some of you call that halftime. It's intermission in Broadway. And then he got to conduct the orchestra when the show was over. As people are leaving, they call that the walk-off music. He also was the Rose Bowl guest of the Rose Bowl Grand Marshal Jane Goodall a couple years ago and got to sit with her at her table the year that John Cooper was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Kind of a cool event. He has been privileged to cross paths with Muhammad Ali on 3 different occasions. One, when he was a cab driver in Chicago during the summer. One, when he was the promoter for a speaking engagement he did at Northwestern University, which is his alma mater. And once when he was having his bus worked on at Custom Coach here in Columbus. God, I'd love to hear about those 3 stories. Finally, as board chair of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, he had the dubious honor of having had Colo, the gorilla, Colo was a gorilla, spit a mouthful of water right at him. Wow, Phil, you zoo guys have quite an initiation for your board members. Or was that a precursor to the ALS bucket challenge that we just kind of completed? Either way, please help me welcome Phil Pekelny to ColumbusRotary.
The spitting by Colo, just to kind of explain what happened. We had the Jane Goodall people were here in Columbus at the Columbus Zoo, and they let us go behind the scenes and get to see Colo, who I believe this year turns 52 or 53 on December 22nd. She was really a precursor to the fame that came to the Columbus Zoo because she was the first gorilla born in captivity here at the Columbus Zoo. Normally, a gorilla would last to about age 40, and she has exceeded that in an amazing way and has been a great ambassador for the zoo. But it was funny, as we were standing and looking at Colo, and you can imagine that she's really just one of those icons of the Columbus Zoo. I'm kind of staring at her, totally in awe. She's kind of staring back at me. And all of a sudden, I realized she went off to the left and we couldn't see her. And she comes back about 30 seconds later. And I'm just kind of, again, looking in awe. And the next thing I know, she had gotten a drink of water, kept it in her mouth, and did one of these. And hit me right in the shoulder, which, again, I had to believe was an initiation of sorts. I've got 2 months left as zoo board chair. I fully expect at the last board meeting, Jack Hanna will do somewhat the same thing. But let me, as we talk about the levy, let me give you a few disclaimers. Obviously, the board of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium will need to vote on any kind of future actions that we do. I'm more than happy to chat about what is likely, but again, it will fall to the board itself to actually make the decision as to what we do moving forward. As I mentioned, I'm in my last 2 months as zoo board chair. It's a 2-year term. I will move to become the past chair, so still be part of the Chairman Advisory Committee. And most of the opinions, if not all of the opinions that you'll hear today, are my own. as really opposed to, excuse me, the official word of the zoo, because again, the official word of the zoo is, thank you, is certainly that of the board itself. Let me begin by first telling you that the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium has never been healthier than it is right now. How many of you have been to Heart of Africa? Yeah, 43-acre new facility that is there. It has been an incredible success. The zoo, because of Heart of Africa having opened in May, has hit a new attendance record of all time. We hit 2 million people coming specifically to the zoo earlier this year than we ever had. Revenues to the Columbus Zoo are almost $3 million ahead of what we had thought. We had the biggest June, the biggest August in the record of the Columbus Zoo. And last Saturday alone, where we had Boo at the Zoo, we had an all-time record 31,500 people attending the zoo just in one day. I remember when a great day at the zoo was 20,000 people, and nowadays it's almost an average day at the zoo is 20,000 people. In fact, on Sunday, this past Sunday, beautiful weather, we did have 21,700 people. At the same time, Zambezi Bay right next door broke its all-time attendance record. By the way, none of this has anything to do with my being board chair. It does have everything to do with Tom Stoff, who is the CEO and president of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, who has done a tremendous job, and I suspect will do a tremendous job for the decades to come. But Zambezi Bay had 416,000 attendees this year, which is larger than the year that it opened in 2008. I heard that you folks are going to be at Wild Lights. Wild Lights opens November 17th, goes through January 4th. If you're at all able to attend, 3 million lights light up the evening at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. And then finally, we've had a slew of new babies born at the zoo. A colobus monkey, a mandrill, a dama gazelle, an okapi, a bonobo, and I am told, so you're hearing it here first, that the polar bears may be pregnant. Now, having said that, we thought they were pregnant last year, and it turned out that they weren't, because interestingly enough, there is no test that you can give a polar bear to find out if they are or aren't pregnant, but they're showing all of the signs of a bear that would be pregnant, so we keep our fingers crossed that we'll have baby polar bears in 2015. So let me go on to the levee. It is obvious as I stand here that last May was not one of the highlights of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. In fact, we had a resounding loss in terms of the vote for the levee. Luckily, we decided to go a year early, and it gives us an opportunity to come back in 2015. The county levy that the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium has expires at the end of 2015. So for the year ahead, we continue to be funded exactly as we were. Let me explain to you, though, what we were trying to do with the levy. We got state law changed to be able to do a continual levy. The purpose of it is our Columbus Zoo and Aquarium every 10 years has to campaign for a levy, and we can only plan in terms of what we're going to build, what we're going to maintain, what we're going to repair 10 years at a time. There are very few businesses, probably none in this room, who could put together any kind of a program of growth if every 10 years you were up for renewal and really didn't know if your funding was going to be similar to what it was in previous years. We also were trying to extend the reach of the zoo to citizens in Columbus, Ohio that really don't have a whole lot of day-to-day interactivity with the zoo. And, you know, at the end of the day, one of the reasons that I personally believe we ended up losing the levy was we went in a primary year where we knew that the vote would be low, but we were targeting those people who we knew were supporters of the zoo, loved the zoo, might vote for a levy for the zoo. What we didn't anticipate, we thought about 100,000 Franklin County residents would come out and vote, and that would be similar to what we had seen in the last non-presidential election in Franklin County. Instead, what we ended up getting was the lowest voter turnout, I believe, on record for Franklin County. What that meant was you had all of the people who were going to the polls to vote against any tax increase, didn't matter if it was a zoo or anything else. And then we attracted very, very, very few other people to the polls to be able to vote in favor of the levy. Looking back at it, you know, was what the board did a bit of an overreach? It might have been, and I think it's a fair criticism. Certainly, you know, we listened to the voters of Franklin County. Collectively, they're a very smart group. They know what they want, they know what they don't want, and we absolutely positively respect it. So as we move toward 2015 for the renewal of that levy, which will happen, or at least the request for the levy and another vote for that levy, we will look at what we did wrong, what we see in the vote that was taken, and what seemed to not be in sync with the residents of Franklin County, and then are committed to doing a better job as we move forward. I do want to point out one thing, though. I do believe, and again, this is personal opinion, but it is backed to some degree by the Ohio Election Commission. I do think that in some regards we had dishonest opposition that came out against the zoo levy. What we learned during the course of the levy is the recovery in the area that we live has been very spotty. Some people are doing very well, other people not doing as well, other people really doing poorly. There is an anti-tax sentiment out in the public that is amazing. It used to be that when you, so I'm told by Chan Cochran, who has been involved with all of the zoo levies in the past, that you go into a levy knowing that there's about 30 to 32% of the public against you, because they tend to be people who just don't want to see taxes raised, and frankly, if they could eliminate a tax, they would like to see it eliminated. That number these days, a lot of political experts say is more like 40 to 45%. In other words, before anybody actually goes to the poll, you've got 40 to 45% of the public saying, I'm going to vote no, even before hearing any argument having to do with what the issue is. I will ask all of the people, and just I want to take a brief moment to talk non-zoo, and I have no tie to Children's Social Services, but Children's Social Services are on the current ballot for November. The one thing that I will tell you in this community is we need a victory. We've seen the schools go down to defeat at the polls, and there were reasons for that. We saw the zoo go down to defeat at the polls, and again, I admit there was reasons for that. But Children's Social Services has been working for over a year for the levy that is on the current ballot. They're asking for no increase. They're asking for just a simple renewal, costs nobody any additional money than what people have been paying to this point in time. And if that levy fails, this community is going to be in a world of hurt. It's going to be in a world of hurt because of the fact that the great work that Children's Social Services does in the community, and also, again, just proving to the community that if done right, and the folks at Franklin County Children's Services have done everything right, if done right, it would be good for this community to pass a a renewal of a tax levy. So at any rate, I ask you to consider that, to think about it, because certainly this community does need a win. As we look forward, though, it is to be determined by the board of directors of the Columbus Zoo what we're going to do moving forward. But I just announced to the zoo board that we have our levy committee for the 2015 year. Keith Shoemate, who is a partner at Squire Patton Boggs, he is a city appointee on our Columbus Zoo board, is the gentleman who will be leading that effort. Already from the day that we lost the last levy, Tom Stoff, our CEO and president of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, has been going out talking to community groups, to churches, to synagogues, to government agencies, as well as charitable groups, to explain to folks, what we have in the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium is, as you all know, the #1 zoo in the country, but it is also a zoo that is in its 8th decade of existence. And just like a house that's 80 years old, there are infrastructure that has to be repaired, that has to be worked on. If we're going to do new exhibits like the one that we currently have at Heart of Africa that truly defines what a great zoo we have, it used to be that when there was a new exhibit at the zoo, it maybe cost $10 million. Heart of Africa or anything that would come after it, we're talking a facility that would be on the order of about $25 to $35 million. 3 times anything that we've done in the past. And in fact, when we did polar bears, which was followed by Heart of Africa was about 1/3 higher again than what it cost to do Africa. My guess is that the zoo board will be looking very closely at what does happen to Franklin County Children's Services. And if that levy does indeed pass, my guess is the zoo will look very seriously at a renewal of its own levy, avoiding any kind of an overreach, certainly going out to community groups and telling a far better story than we did the last time that we went to the public for a levy. Another issue that is out there that we will be dealing with and need to deal with is the issue of Delaware County. When the Columbus Zoo was moved up to its current location, it was moved there, as you would all pretty much imagine, because nothing else existed there. Back in the day, and this is just an oddity of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium used to be a part of sewers and drains in the city of Columbus. It had nothing to do with Parks and Rec. In fact, Jack Hanna tells the story when he was hired as the new zoo director, and I think the Columbus Dispatch, my employer, had a board chair who was responsible at the time to getting Jack here. But Jack flies into Columbus, he gets in a cab, he says, "Take me to the Columbus Zoo." And the cab driver says, "We don't have no zoo here. Somebody's pulling your leg." And he goes, "I hope not, because I was just hired to be the new zoo director." And the cab driver was adamant that there was no Columbus Zoo to be found. And indeed, again, because it was under sewers and drains, it was up by the O'Shaughnessy Dam, that's where they happen to have land. The evolution of the zoo and obviously the spectacular growth of Delaware have sort of coincided. Both have had explosive growth, but it gives us a very weird situation of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium being on Columbus City land. It is part of Columbus, just like where we all are sitting and standing right now. However, it happens to be surrounded by Delaware County. And there is a misconception that somehow Delaware gets a free ride. They don't get a free ride because all of the fire services, ambulance services, police services have to be supplied by Delaware County or by the township, Liberty Township, up by the zoo. In Franklin County, those expenses aren't involved. Now, Franklin County residents do pay or are gracious enough to give the zoo a levy. But what you will also find out come next year is while the admission prices will go up for the Columbus Zoo, because they have to, there will be no change in what Franklin County residents 7 days a week pay for the Columbus Zoo. Those of folks who do live up in Delaware County will not be sort of exempt from that increase. By the same token, though, the zoo needs to get with the officials in Delaware County, get with our officials in Franklin County, and figure out, because it's very difficult for citizens to understand why their Columbus Zoo is up in Delaware County. You can explain all of the minutiae that you want as to why that's the case, but the simple fact of the matter is, especially during an election, nobody's listening to what you have to say. They're voting on 10-second sound bites and the emotion of, do we have a tax levy, do we not? With that, if there are any questions that I can answer regarding the levy, either future, past, whatever, more than happy to do it. Yes?
Why don't you have 3 levies? And wouldn't the citizens of Delaware be as anxious to support the zoo as we are in Franklin County? And whatever county the Wilds is in should be equally interested.
Yeah, and that is a very, very good, fair point for anybody to make. But what the reality and the fear would be that if you have, and let's just deal with Franklin County and Delaware County, if those 2 counties each had their own levy, it is very easy for the voters in one to say, I'll let the other guys do it, and the voters in the other county say, I'll let those guys take care of it. And what ends up happening is then you have 2 levies on a ballot, neither one of which pass. There's a number of us who believe that doing some kind of a joint, some kind of a joint program where both residents in both area together are voting on something is probably the better way to do that. But it will be, and there will be a group that we'll have at the zoo that will be looking at this and studying this because we are way overdue to take a look at it. In fact, Chan Cochran tells me Delaware has been an issue from day one when the levy first went on the Franklin County ballot, but it just never rose to the occasion that the latest election brought it to. So it is something we will look at, something we will deal with. I doubt it will be decided within the next year of exactly how to tackle that issue, but I will guarantee you that it will within the coming 3 to 5 years, so that if Franklin County is kind enough to vote renew the levy for the zoo, we will get this solved by the time a next levy renewal comes around.
Are there plans for a large-scale development proposal following the Africa proposal?
Yeah, it's funny. Africa is only 1/3 of the land that we have for Africa. Only 1/3 has been developed. So we've got 2/3 yet to go. North America, which is the oldest part of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, is in bad need of refreshing and redesign. So that would be a major sort of piece of work. Tom Stoff is in the final stages, which is something we should have done prior to the last levy. But Tom Stoff is in the final stages of putting together the strategic plan. But again, our difficulty becomes if we get a levy passed in 2015, we will have revenue for the next 10 years. So banks will look at us as we try to get money for the future work and the future projects that we plan to have, and they're only going to see 10 years of protection in terms of whatever kind of money they might loan. So, but again, that's going to be our reality. We recognize that perfectly fine. and we will deal with it because the voters have asked us to deal with it, and we'll be happy to do that.
Yes. Will you make the mistake of seeking a permanent levy again?
I strongly doubt it. You know, one thing I would mention, and again, you heard the reason why we felt that permanent was fair. I don't know how many of you realize that the Columbus Public Library has a permanent levy. In fact, there's a number of public entities out there that do have permanent levies. We had felt that the zoo, having been good stewards of the public money in the past, would be able to qualify like the library and some others. Obviously, voters were very definitive in their point of they would like every 10 years to pass judgment on how well the zoo is spending their money and where the zoo is headed. And we understand that, we respect that, we heard that, and we are absolutely in agreement with it. So yes, the board will have to make final decision, but my guess is that the levy we would ask for would be a 10-year levy. Yes.
I have an observation and a question. Many of the people I talked to voted no on the levy due primarily to the plan to expand to a second site downtown with the thought that that would dilute resources and they prefer to put money into ways to subsidize perhaps people getting to the real zoo. So my question is, will that expansion be on the next ballot?
Yeah, Tom Stoff, the CEO president, has already said that no, it will definitely not be part of any future levy that we're asking for. We may indeed, if we have an opportunity unrelated to the levy, try to reach out to more people in Franklin County, specifically Center City, Grove City, Pickerington, where we don't get a lot of visits to the zoo because the zoo is tucked away in that northwest corner. But having said that, for sure, any levy that we come back with will not include anything other than the Powell campus up north. Yes, for sure. Was there a question?
Same question I had.
Oh, okay.
What's your prime source of income? You've got to have income coming in, admissions, the city. Where else do you get money besides the levy?
Indeed, we have put together a much more professional fundraising team. So the Columbus Zoo now has about $15 million in a foundation fund. We also obviously have admission money as people buy things at the zoo. That generates more revenue. The levy in Franklin County only makes up 18% of the operational expenses of the Columbus Zoo. The rest of the levy dollars have really, in the past and in the future, go to infrastructure capital needs to be able to take the infrastructure and repair it where it needs to be repaired, or to build new exhibits moving forward. But yes, there are other dollars that come to the zoo. We as a zoo are in the very, 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 and I will say very 18 more times, beginning stages of taking a look at, could this zoo live without a levy? It is very, it's sort of like an alcoholic. I mean, if the drink is always there, you're always going to partake. But with the scare that we had in May, we're asking ourselves the question, what kind of fundraising would it take so that we don't have to go to the citizens of Franklin County asking for a levy? Within the next year, none of that, we couldn't turn around on a dime like that. But I do know that a number of us would love to go to the voters of Franklin County after 2015 and either ask for half the levy that we've had in the past or no levy. But again, it will take a lot of planning, a lot of fundraising, a lot of other, also you have here in Columbus one of the lowest prices for a zoo and aquarium anywhere in the country. And even with the increase that we're proposing for next year, it is still cheaper than Cincinnati, Cleveland. And what would happen if the levy were not to pass, certainly there would be some cutbacks that would have to be done, some belt tightening, but the price of admission would certainly go up. I'm headed on Wednesday to Disney World, and our zoo truly stacks up well against Animal Kingdom in terms of what we have in Columbus, Ohio, in Heart of Africa, far more intimate look at giraffes and wildebeest and all of the animals that are there. We charge under $20, I think under $15 for admission. When I go to Disney, to Heart of Africa, I'll pay $100 if I elect to go to Animal Kingdom. Big difference, big difference. And are we going to raise our fees to that kind of stratosphere level? No. But again, that's what happens with a different look at funding. Yes, sir.
How successful are your private fundraising?
Much more so than ever before. We probably about 3 years ago, we didn't, say 5 years ago, we didn't have a single fundraiser or sponsor paying over $1 million. Now we're led by Nationwide Insurance that has a multi-million-dollar sponsorship, my own company, a number of others, AEP. So, and with the notoriety that our zoo has, with Heart of Africa having built the way it was built, I do believe there are a number of national companies that would like to be aligned with the Columbus Zoo and with the conservation that we do at the Columbus Zoo. So I think our fundraising will exponentially get better as we go 2, 4, 6 years into the future. Oh, well, go ahead. You're the president, so I have to go to him first.
Have you ever considered working with CODA to provide transit service for the inner city residents?
We do, and we do. There is a bus that goes from downtown to the zoo, and it almost every day, and it was very heavily promoted last year, and almost every day it goes to the zoo with about 2 people. It's a very difficult thing to get people to commit to coming to the zoo with kids and family and all on a bus and a bus schedule. But yes, we keep looking at that.
What about the external opposing, those people coming in from the outside? Have you thought, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, so we have indeed reached out to the opposition, and I think we are making some very good headway. I do want to, and this is going to be a very personal point that I'm going to make, but what is very true about the May election is we went to the Ohio Election Commission because there was information that people voted or made the decision of their vote that was just patently false. One of that was a lot of veterans who were told in campaign literature that the Columbus Zoo was tearing down Veterans Memorial and building in its place a new zoo. Well, that could not be more false than anything. Where the zoo was going to go was a complete other side of the Scioto Peninsula, and we have nothing to do with the Veterans Memorial. We stood in front of the Ohio Election Commission, made our case. The Election Commission indeed said, in a unanimous verdict, that the people who were opposing the zoo levy had lied, knew they were lying, and after they knew they were lying, continued distributing those materials. Here's the problem. If you've been following in the Columbus Dispatch, which I hope you all subscribe to, by the way, you know that the Supreme Court overruled the state law that prohibits lying in elections, meaning that now any candidate or any issue group can say anything they want, and the Ohio Election Commission is out of business, and you're going to depend on the media to help decipher what's true, what isn't, because you can't be found guilty of lying anymore, which seems like a very odd way to do elections, but nonetheless, it is what it is.
Just to make a little plug for you, at Christmas time, the memberships for the zoos just make great and very affordable gifts for, I know that my niece and nephew put me on their family membership, and it didn't cost them hardly anything, and we got a whole summer's worth of pleasure out of that. So I would plug as Christmas is coming, I would plug.
You're becoming president here, right? But I agree with you. For the past 4 years, I've given people on my staff gifts that I bought from the Columbus Zoo because they are very reasonably priced, and people love the Columbus Zoo.
But
so.
The membership is
yeah.
what is really...
Yeah, but thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Last question?
You mentioned that the levy accounted for 17-18% of the total budget. What is the dollar value of the levy?
The levy funds that currently come to the zoo, and if we renewed it, that would be coming to the zoo, would be $18 million a year. And it's a 10-year levy, so over the course of the 10 years, it is, I just want to emphasize this, because we will be coming back to the public and we will be talking to you again. It is the smallest amount of money coming from the total property tax bill that you have comes to the Columbus Zoo. There is no part of property taxes that Franklin County residents pay that is any less than the $18 million that goes each year to the zoo. And that money returns in terms of economic value, in terms of employment, in terms of tourism, travel, far more than the money that Franklin County residents give to the zoo. But, last May, you would not have believed what I just said, because that wasn't the debate. The debate was on a whole bunch of other very weird issues. So, but thank you. I appreciate the time. I will tell you, I hope, this has been educational. I hope this has been informative. Next time, I implore you to have Tom Stoff be your speaker, because he comes with slides and animals, and he's a lot more fun than a zoo board chair. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Very interesting and appreciated. And my grandchildren and me, thank you for the wonderful zoo. And here is a gift from Argo and Laney for coming and speaking for us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Join us next week for Dr. Dan Ross, who will speak about high school athletics. Meeting adjourned.